afternoon, Year 3, and welcome to this afternoon's mini art lesson. This art project this afternoon is going to be based on sculpture. Now, sculpture is where an artist creates a piece of artwork that is 3D, so it's three-dimensional. Usually it's fairly big. You can usually walk around a sculpture, and they usually use materials like stone or... Hello? Gonna say hello to the camera? There we go. Sorry, that's Frodo, my dog. He's just come to say hello to you all. So usually they use stone and carved stone or plaster or perhaps clay or sometimes even metal. And the artist that we're going to be looking at today that we'll be inspired by is an artist called Giacometti. His first name is Alberto, his surname is Giacometti, so Alberto Giacometti. And we're going to be looking at his sculptures of people. Here's a little sculpture that I made earlier from tin foil. So in a minute, I'm going to talk you through how to go about this afternoon's lesson. But first of all, I'd like you to watch this clip of a young boy called Miles. He's only 5 and he is at the Tate Modern Gallery in London, and he's at the Giacometti exhibition. There are lots of Giacometti's sculptures, and he's going to show you what he can see and tell you about things that he notices about Giacometti's sculptures. Have a really good look at the people in the sculptures, and I wonder if you can think about what looks a bit weird about the people. Also, have a look and see if you can see the surface of these sculptures, and have a look at the texture. So that's how something would feel, wouldn't it? What would be on the surface? Are they really smooth? See if you can find that out, and I'll talk you through in a minute about the next part of our project. Bye for now.
I'm Miles, and I'm a curator at Tate Modern. I'm here to show you some sculptures by Giacometti. He's famous for making two-pin sculptures. Did you know a sculpture is something you can walk around? With this sculpture, we're going to talk about size. This sculpture is very, very big. It is taller than me. With this sculpture, we're going to talk about shape. This lady is very, very thin. She's got a small head and long, long legs. I'm wondering why he doesn't fall over. With this sculpture, we're going to be talking about materials. This sculpture is very, very nubbly and bubbly. I think the artist pushed it and pulled it and poked it and slapped it. It's actually made of metal. It stands up because there's some kind of pad under their feet. With this sculpture, we're going to be talking about ideas. I think this person is pointing. I think it's pointing at a dog. With this sculpture, we're going to be talking about labels. This label's called Head with a Large Nose. So, I hope you enjoyed my tour of Giacometti. I'm going to say bye-bye to the sculptures and bye-bye to you.
Okay then, this is the equipment that we're going to need for this afternoon's art lesson. We need some kitchen foil, a pair of scissors, and possibly a Sharpie marker. If you haven't got a Sharpie marker at home, it really doesn't matter. You can do this without having a pen. Okay, so the very first thing you're going to need to do is to take a piece of kitchen foil. Obviously, the longer the piece of kitchen foil that you have, the bigger or the longer the legs and arms of your sculpture might end up being. If your sculpture ends up too big, like the arms and legs are too long, I'll show you how you can shorten them so that they're the kind of the length that you really would like your Alberto Giacometti sculpture to be. Okay, so once you've got your foil, the first thing that you need to do is, I'm just going to put some guidelines at the top here. So I'm going to put 2 here. Can you see I've slightly made them diagonal as opposed to straight? If yours was straight, vertical, straight down, it really doesn't matter. Sorry, that's just my dog Frodo having a nice bark in the background, so sorry about him. So if they were vertical lines, it doesn't matter if your cuts were vertical. I've just made mine slightly diagonal. Okay, so these will be where your sculpture will be, your sculpture's arms basically, and this part here will be the head. And then at the bottom you need to make just one guideline here, and these are for the legs for your sculpture. That's all we needed the pen for. So as I said, if you don't have a Sharpie pen, it really doesn't matter. So first of all, you take your scissors and you just need to go quite carefully and be very gentle with the foil. It's very easy for the foil to rip. So you just need to be careful. So first of all, I've just made a cut for the legs. Turn that around just so that it's easy and it fits, trying to get it to fit onto the screen for you. And then I'm going to make a cut where I've made the lines for the arms and the head. Again, treating the foil with care as it's very fragile. But at the end of the day, if it goes wrong and it rips, you can always just take another piece of tin foil and then start again. Just check with whoever looks after you at home, whichever adult you have at home, just to make sure they're happy with you taking some tin foil for this project. So the first thing we need to do is to gently, very gently, scrunch this part here, which is to the leg. So just going to very gently scrunch that, and then scrunch this side, which is the next leg. That's what we've got at the moment. It's really hard to get it all on my screen. I'm a bit limited as to where I can record from home. So can you see what I've done there? So that was the first cut at the bottom, the one cut, and I've scrunched each side just gently crumpled. And now the top, these 2 sections, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to twist the foil all round so it's easier for me to get to. There we go. So looks a bit funny at the moment. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to scrunch this middle part, which I'm sure you've guessed by now will be the body of our sculpture. So I'm just going to move the foil around. Now at the moment he doesn't quite look in the same shape as Giacometti's sculptures. He hasn't got that elongated skinny body like my sculpture is here. So I'll show you now how to change your sculpture, how to mould your sculpture from this shape now into this skinny shape. So the next thing that you need to do is to go in and use your fingers to sculpt, press, squeeze the tin foil into the shape that you want. So his legs, if you think about the video that you watched of Miles at the Tate Modern Gallery in London, showing you Giacometti's sculptures. Got very, very skinny legs. So you want to mould and press your foil tightly into that skinny shape. Okay, now I'm going to do the same up here now for his arms. Again, just being quite gentle with the tin foil, and now starting to shape the tummy, the body, and I'm just going to scrunch that bit just here for the neck. Okay, so just spend a little bit more time just moulding his body. Really press and mould his arms and legs. Now, if you look closely at Giacometti's sculptures, lots of information and images on the internet, if you put in a Google search, you will really notice when you look at the texture, remember that's how something feels, the surface of something. If you really look at the texture of the surface of Giacometti's figures, you'll see that they're all lumpy and bumpy, and it really shows how much time he spent pressing and moulding his sculpture material, like his clay. So what we're doing here with the foil is quite similar actually to the process that Giacometti would have gone through, but of course his sculptures are a lot bigger than ours today. So there we go. So spent some time there. I'm just going to make sure his head is nicely modelled how I would like it. Quite like his long skinny neck actually on this one. Really press it. Use your strength to press him. There we go. Fantastic. So that is my Giacometti sculpture. Now the next thing that I would like you to do on this lesson is to pose your Giacometti sculpture. So that is to put him into a position that would show how he is feeling, or she is feeling for that matter. So I thought what we could do is to think about our emotion words that we have looked at since the start of the year. These were the words, weren't they, that told us how somebody is feeling. So these are the new words we've been looking up and learning. We had jaded and disgruntled, reluctant, dismayed, receptive, mystified, delirious, ecstatic, thoughtful, and enthusiastic. Now I wonder if you can remember what all of those words mean. Some of those words, have a think about them. What could you do if you can't remember the meanings of those words? What could you use at home? Let's have a think. You might have a dictionary. If you don't have a dictionary, if you have access to the internet, you could Google and pull up a Google dictionary and remind yourself of what some of these words mean. Now, I'm going to pick 3 of these words. I'm going to have jaded and thoughtful and ecstatic. I'm going to choose those 3 today. So jaded, thoughtful and ecstatic. I'm just going to move them over here to this side of my screen. So I'm going to pose my sculpture. Let's think about how we would look if we were jaded. Now, jaded meant very downtrodden, really tired, kind of exhausted, just don't want to do anymore. How would your body look if somebody was jaded? What would they look like? So I think if my figure was jaded, his head would be bent down slightly. His arms and his back would be slightly hunched over. I think he'd be walking a bit like this because he'd be jaded, so jaded. There we go. Then what would our figure look like if he was thoughtful? So maybe this time he'd be, let's make him sit down. Perhaps he would have his head on his hand somehow. So perhaps that position would be thoughtful. Now this arm looks a bit crazy long, so I'm just going to bend that over so that looks a better shape.